Ever wonder how we know a new medicine is safe or a vaccine? Well, it's definitely not just guesswork. It's this incredibly rigorous process called a clinical trial. And honestly, it's the bedrock of all modern medicine. So let's dive in and demystify how we figure out what actually works.
And that really brings us to the central question, right? The one we're going to tackle today. How do we really know if a new medicine is safe and if it's going to be effective? And look, this isn't some abstract academic thing. This is about the trust you and I place in the treatments that we rely on to keep us healthy.
Okay, so here's our game plan for figuring that out. First up, we're going to get straight to it. What is a clinical trial? Then we'll dig into why they matter so much. After that, we'll look at the nuts and bolts of how you actually design one. You know, how to avoid common errors and bias. And finally, we'll talk about the most important part, asking the right question from the very beginning.
All right, first things first. Let's break down the basics. What exactly is a clinical trial?
You know, the name itself actually gives us a couple of really big clues. The clinical part, that's all about observing and treating actual patients, real people. And trial, well, that's exactly what it sounds like. It's a test, right? An examination of the evidence to see if something really performs the way we think it will.
So put those two ideas together and what do you get? A clinical trial is basically a research study with human volunteers. And it's designed to answer super specific questions about how well a medical approach, like a new drug or a vaccine, or even a new kind of surgery, actually works in people.
And you might be surprised to hear this, but this idea isn't new at all. It's been refined over centuries. I mean, the story really gets going way back in 1747. A guy named James Lind ran what was probably the first systematic trial on sailors who had scurvy. He gave different groups different things to eat. One group got citrus fruits, and, well, he proved what worked. A totally revolutionary concept for the time. Then you fast forward to the 1920s, and you've got statisticians like Sir Ronald Fisher who came up with these brilliant ideas like randomization, which is a fantastic way to get human bias out of the results. And by the 1930s, big organizations like the British Medical Research Council were making these trials the absolute gold standard.
Okay, so we've got a handle on what they are, but that brings up an even bigger question. Why do they matter so much? Let's talk about the very real stakes behind all this science.
Well, the goals are actually way broader than you might think. We're not just talking about finding a cure for something. Trials are about finding better ways to prevent disease from even starting. They're about improving how we diagnose illnesses, boosting survival rates, and at the end of the day, just making the quality of life better for patients. And here's the kicker, they're also the ultimate showdown. Is this new thing actually better than the best treatment we've got right now?
And this quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. Without trials, there is a risk that people could be given treatments which have no advantage, waste resources, and might even be harmful. I mean, think about that. Without this kind of rigorous testing, we'd essentially be flying blind. We could be giving people treatments that do nothing at all, wasting time and money, or worse, actually causing harm.
So the takeaway here is that clinical trials are basically the gatekeepers of medicine. They're the ones that generate the cold, hard evidence that doctors and regulators need to make the right call. They help them decide, okay, is this treatment safe? Is it appropriate? Does it actually work?
All right, so we've established they're super important. But how do you actually build one? How do you put a trial together? This is where we get into the design, the process of going from just a question to a full-blown protocol.
Yeah, the first thing you have to realize is this is not a one-person show, not even close. A modern trial is designed by a whole team of experts. You've got doctors, researchers, statisticians, but what's really amazing and a fantastic trend we're seeing is that patients are now a huge part of that design team. And that's so important because it makes sure the trial is actually asking questions that matter to the people it's supposed to help. And the process itself follows a really logical path. First, the team does what's called a systematic review. Basically, they scour all the existing research so they're not just reinventing the wheel. Then, with that knowledge, they create the protocol. Think of it like a super detailed blueprint for the entire trial. And nothing, I mean nothing, happens until that blueprint gets a green light from an independent ethics committee. And let me tell you, this ethics committee approval is no rubber stamp. They ask the tough questions. Do the potential benefits actually outweigh the risks involved? Is the information for the people volunteering crystal clear? Is the recruitment process fair to everyone? Their entire job is to protect the people who are bravely volunteering for the study. Okay, so designing the trial is one huge piece of the puzzle, but making sure the results are actually trustworthy, that's a whole other challenge. And that brings us to this constant, ongoing battle to avoid errors and bias, all in the search for objective truth.
So, any good trial has to sidestep two major traps. First, you have what's called a type 1 error or a false positive. The smoke alarm analogy is perfect here. It's like the alarm is blaring, but there's no fire. The trial says the drug works when it actually doesn't. Then there's the opposite, a type 2 error or a false negative. Now the house is on fire, but the alarm is dead silent. You miss a drug that genuinely works. The entire design of the trial is built to try and prevent both of these things from happening.
The other massive threat here is something called bias. And a great way to think about bias is like someone putting their thumb on the scale to tip it one way. It's any little thing in the study's design that systematically nudges the results away from the real truth. And it's not about one person making a mistake, it's a flaw in the system itself.
And man, bias can creep in from all over the place. Take selection bias, for example. That's when the group getting the new drug is just different from the control group. Maybe they're healthier to begin with. Well, your results are going to be skewed from the get-go. Or there's performance bias. That could happen if the doctors know who's getting the real drug, and maybe they unintentionally treat those patients a bit differently. Researchers have to be like detectives, anticipating all these little human things and designing the trial to control for them.
Which brings us to our final and maybe most important section. Because everything we've talked about, all of it, builds from one simple yet incredibly profound starting point: asking the right question. Look, you could have the most flawlessly designed trial in history with zero bias, but if your question is vague, the results will be completely meaningless. Asking something like, is my drug safe and effective? I mean, what does that even mean? It's way too broad. A good trial is built on an absolutely laser-focused, specific question.
And to get that specific question, you have to define your variables. First, you have outcome variables. These are the things you're actually measuring to get your answer. Think, a specific reduction in blood pressure or a change in tumor size. But then you also have to track influencing variables. These are all the other factors that could mess with your outcome. Things like a person's age, their weight, their lifestyle.
And here's a perfect example of why that's so critical. Imagine you're testing a new blood pressure drug. If the group that gets the new medicine happens to be, on average, way younger than the control group, well, their blood pressure might go down simply because they're younger, not because of the drug. You'd come to a completely wrong conclusion. That's exactly why a good trial has to control for all those influencing factors.
So, how do we measure all of this stuff? Well, it all comes down to data, and that data usually comes in two main flavors. First, you've got your quantitative data. These are the hard numbers: a 10-point drop in blood pressure, a tumor shrinking by 2 millimeters. It's stuff you can measure. But then you also have qualitative data, which is just as important. This is more descriptive, a patient saying they feel less pain or that they have more energy. The numbers give you the facts, but the qualitative data gives you the human experience. And a really great trial needs both to get the full picture.
So, as we've seen, getting to the right answer with a clinical trial is this incredibly complex, painstaking process, just filled with checks and balances. But at its core, it all rests on something really simple: human curiosity. And it leaves you with this thought, right? The biggest challenge isn't always finding the answer. Sometimes the hardest part is just making sure you're asking the right question to begin with.